Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday. Finally made it out here to the end of the weekend. Going to be actually kind of cool out here in Northern California this weekend. Got a little low pressure system coming in. Going to bring us some cooler weather, so not quite as hot. I think I may barbecue out here. Should be an excellent weekend. All right, it is Friday, June 20th, 2025, 11:23 a.m. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D Globe shows a 1.5 across California. Also a 1.6 there in the oil fields of Texas. Now, before we get into today's activity, I do like to cover what's been going on here so far this year and whether or not we're at a number observed as far as earthquake activity on the higher range or lower range of average yearly quakes. Now, this is the number of quakes each year on average, right, in terms of magnitude. On average, we see about 15 earthquakes of magnitude 7.0 to 7.9. All right. Currently, so far, I mean, we're pretty much halfway through the year already, right? We've only had 5 7-pointers. That's it. 5 7-pointers. So we are actually getting behind in terms of the average number of 7.0 earthquakes. So we have some catching up to do. 8.0, we have not had an 8.0 yet. Our last 8-pointer was back in 2021. A lot of time has actually passed there since our last 8-pointer. For 6.0 to 6.9, 130 per year. So far, minus the 5 here, we're at 48. So 48, 6.0 to 6.9. That puts us even behind for the average yearly number of 6.0 to 6.9. Because if you cut that in half there, well, that's less than what we're seeing. We've seen a lot less than the average number of 6.0 to 6.9 so far. So I do like to cover that real quick because a lot of people have been hearing about earthquakes, and it's just they're not more frequent. They're just being reported more. Across sports stations, across weather stations, weather YouTube channels, and Facebook posts. It's just, no uptick in earthquake activity around the globe for now. Let's go ahead and check out and see what we do have, though. For Northern California, a couple earthquakes here overnight since last night's update. 3.4, 2.9, and a 2.8 out here across the southern end of the Gorda Plate. It's been quite active out here recently. Let me tell you, that's a little bit above normal. But this newer activity we're seeing is back building here away from this area of interest here across the southern end. Leads me to believe that everything's at a standstill in terms of pressurization out here for now, but that could easily give away and hit the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone with a partial rupture there. It does happen on occasion. In fact, it happens in between regular intervals of large events there on the Cascadia subduction zone. So watch that closely. Starting to see an uptick there in that region. The rest of Northern California, pretty quiet. Getting a little clustering going on here across the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault again. Got a little swarm stirring up here. Roughly at about the same time as we started seeing some movement up north here. It seems like when things start to really strain out here across the west coast, it tends to show on a broad scale of the map out here. Nothing big, but just an increase in earthquake activity roughly around 3 to 5 o'clock in the morning this morning. So continue to watch that. The Parkfield segment down south here, pretty quiet. Southern California getting some newer activity here off of the Garlock. Well, it's on the Garlock Fault shear zone, but it's away from our swarming area. Our swarming area back over here that's had hundreds of earthquakes. If we were to go back in the last few months there, like I did a couple videos back, you would see. But even in the last 30 days, we've had 162 earthquakes there in that ongoing swarm. Now we're getting a little activity away from there, and that in itself is showing some signs of strain out here as well. Things are starting to kick up for the Garlock Fault shear zone. That's got, some large capability there. I think they said a 7.5 can strike out here on this area. It's a fairly lengthy shear zone. It builds up strain, and it does interact here with the San Andreas Fault. The 7.5 on this system, I think it would definitely trigger the San Andreas Fault here, considering how much strain is built up here. And it could be vice versa. San Andreas Fault could trigger even a 7.5 out here on the Garlock Fault shear zone. Of course, the San Andreas Fault here, much capable of producing a larger event than a 7.5, up to an 8.1 earthquake. And of course, that all depends on the fault rupture out here. Maybe it's going to be longer than just the southern end. That would, potentially have a little bit more damaging effects. Either way, a lot of time has passed. We're living well into the future since the last event. Southern California, extreme Southern California, nothing above 2.5, and nothing of any abnormal activity aside from that newer movement up here. That's definitely newer and away from the swarm area. Not a whole lot happening directly on the San Andreas Fault there for now, though. Up into Washington, let's see, about 5 o'clock in the morning it started to show some movement. Little 0.7. Some other activity out there as well in the last 24 hours, but really not anything major going on. Outside of Seattle, 1 o'clock in the morning, sublimity, is that right? I'm guessing that's right there. Outside of Salem, they're just across the Cascades, maybe the foothills there of the Cascades of 1.4. Nothing big. That's kind of very close. Well, that's maybe north here where the tremor activity was occurring underneath this area. Let me show you guys Cascadia tremor. That was about 7 epicenters. Yeah, interestingly, though, this tremor activity, only a small amount, but this is a slow slip events occurring underneath the area into the Cascadia. And that earthquake that we've seen this morning is literally right up against the crest here of the mountains due east of where the tremor activity is occurring. But the earthquake, that about 12 miles deep, so that is shallower than the tremor activity. But look, I mean, it's literally just due east of where the tremor activity is occurring from yesterday, underneath this area. And now we get an earthquake up here. So, it's, the Cascadia is very well strained. Whether it has enough to produce a full rupture or not remains to be seen. If that does take place, we're looking at a 9.0 earthquake out here. That's just a historical fact. It's happened many times in the past, and here we are 325 years into the future since the last big one. Some movement up in Idaho, getting a number of fault systems up here showing some movement up to Yellowstone National Park. I don't see anything of any swarming nature out there, but I do want to double check that. I don't want to get too far off of this one page I was going to show you guys. So let's do this real quick. Open up Yellowstone on a new one and show you guys. I don't see a whole lot going on there. There's one earthquake up here around Maple Creek, another little tiny earthquake right here, but those are very small. They're not even probably going to count any of those. But really nothing going on there for Yellowstone. Outside the region, oil fields starting to kick back up here today. Number of 1s and 2s out there. New Madrid seismic zone, quiet for now. It's been a little spotty with earthquake activity out here in the last week. Occasionally we do get these quakes. Over the last 30 days, we've had 34 earthquakes here around the New Madrid seismic zone eastward and up into the northeast. Probably about an average number. They do get some smaller quakes up here on occasion. But in the last week or so, it's been awfully quiet. So it's possible we could see things fill in here slightly with some other earthquake activity. It just seems to be happening here on a regular schedule. 5-pointer out in Iran, it looks like, northern Iran. 5.1, that is about 6 miles deep here outside the area, the capital region. No big earthquake activity occurring there for now. Some other activity previously here, it looks like, from yesterday. Looks like it may be trying to follow this. There's a fault boundary that sits up here along the mountain ranges. So, and of course, this area can get some big earthquakes as well. But for now, just a 5-pointer. Some movement out there around Santorini, Greece, and the Sea of Crete area, and also along the plate boundary. So we better go double check, see what's going on there across the Greece area. Seismograph stations here around Santorini, Greece. There's that What is that? 4-pointer stirring up out there? Yeah, 4.8. That's a more recent one. Very close to the Santorini, Greece area, which is right here. It's in that swarming region. See? It's right around that swarm area. May have set off another swarm out there. We'll have to see here in the next few hours, but looks like earthquake activity is increasing around the Santorini, Greece area. And of course, this is a region here that had hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes here. Was it back in April? I think it was April here. Maybe even previous to that. Is it March? Hard to say, but there was a good 6 to 8 weeks of solid activity where we're seeing earthquake counts up in the 100 range. But like I said, we'll have to see if that increases. Let me see what we got here from the Raspberry Shake data stations. See if anything's stirring up here on this beautiful Friday. The 4-pointer, yeah, see, it's within that range here. If this was indeed volcanic activity or getting ready to be volcanic activity, it can take months, if not years sometimes, to build up to a big eruption. That 4.8 that struck here just a short time ago is well within the range of where that swarming activity has occurred, mainly across the Colombo volcano region. There's a couple different seamounts underneath this area, away from Santorini. Santorini area is still getting some earthquake activity there in the dots, but the main focus has been right here in this area, underneath the ocean. Like I say, we'll have to see if this doesn't stir up more of a swarm there. But that 4.8 striking 16 miles deep underneath this area. Something brewing out here. It's got something going on. All that swarming that we had there over the past, few months, there was never a culprit. There was never an outcome. That's why I'm saying I still think it could be some volcanic activity underneath this area. Maybe, again, it could take months, maybe years. But something is brewing underneath this region. So we'll watch that closely. We'll check back on that a little bit later on this evening. Decent swarm of activity out here in the Atlantic. Most of that from yesterday. Today, a 5-pointer. We have to go back the last couple days to see that swarm. Got about 12 earthquakes here, various magnitudes. And we had a similar event out here. Yeah, I thought I had it pulled up. But it was in the same area we're seeing right now. I believe it was back in April, early May, of a number of 5-pointers and 6-pointers out here in the same area. And when that happened, we've seen increasing earthquake activity here across the Mediterranean. And shortly thereafter, that 7-pointer hit the Burma area, back over here across Myanmar. Maybe seeing the effects of that right now with the increasing activity there across the Sea of Crete, close to the Sea of Crete there. Iran's showing some elevated activity. The separation here of the plates, right? The big, huge Atlantic ridge out here, this rift boundary, is a major player in getting the plates moving. We're seeing the activity roughly about right here where these two arrows are pointing away from each other. Earthquake activity has been going on there for, many years. And it tends to put the plates into motion out here. Things start to get elevated when we see that activity out there across the Atlantic ridge area. You can see got to go to the oceanic crust. The patterns out here throughout time. And of course, we all learned this back in school, right? How everything fit together. It's pretty obvious, the plate tectonics that have been happening out here. Slow separation of the plates. The zipper pattern out here indicative of how the plates are moving apart in this general fashion, left to right, or left and then to the right here of the Atlantic ridge. But it gets the plates moving for sure. So no big earthquake activity yet. I think that Iran earthquake is going to take the largest so far for today. Yep. Previous to that, South Sandwich Trench starting to fill in here. Well, not quite on the subduction zone. It's off of it, back here across this little fracture zone. But that should increase movement down south. I know we've had a lot of earthquake activity here recently, but the majority of it has been up north along that subduction zone. We should see this area fill in soon. That's, for the most part, that's how it plays out here. It's a neat little subduction zone, and it's somewhat equal here in terms of the length. I guess there's more of a subduction zone up here at north on the northern end than there is on the south over this way, but still we should see this fill in with this newer activity. All right, let's see what else we got here. My birds probably can't hear them because I'm using a mic that should block out background noise. Birds are going crazy out here today for whatever reason. Got a couple parakeets there, and sometimes, man, they can be quite loud. Quite a few twos out there across Puerto Rico right now. A little swarm going on there as well. New Zealand, looks like some threes stirring up out here. No big earthquake activity yet, but some larger movement up north there along the Kermadec Trench. Some deeper activity returning to the Tonga Trench here. Just rinse and repeat cycle here. That should apply further strain across this area with those deeper movements occurring. The general plate stress out here, the movement map, shows the Pacific plate moving off to the northwest here in the arrows. So earthquake activity that generally occurs back here across that subduction zone. And the Tonga Trench there normally puts strain up here across this area. All right, seen another decent flare out there, right? So let me see here what we got. Oh, wait, forgot to cover Hawaii, right? That finally went this morning. Said it was going to probably happen last night, and sure enough, it did. Let's see if it's still ongoing here. It may have ended by now. Nope, we're still going out there. Look at that. Beautiful fountain going on. I'm sure it's a lot lower than what it originally started with. Probably not going to last much longer, though, in terms of the current eruption. Let's see when that began here. 7:30 a.m. local time. So that's actually, let's see, lava fountains and flows continue. That's at 7:30. Looks like late last night, Hawaii time, it started when lava began overflowing from the north vent. So yeah, 1:40 a.m. local time there in Hawaii was the official beginning of that latest eruption, episode number 26. So let's see where we're at here in terms of the deformation data. Going down as expected, right? Depletion of magma, and we're pretty much, yeah, we're it should stop here pretty soon, because looking at the map, the deformation chart here shows our current level right here, literally below the previous level. So shouldn't last much longer. And then I guess we'll go back up to episode 27 here in a number of days. It's been a rinse and repeat cycle out there across Kilauea Volcano since December of last year. Nothing new. Pretty crazy, but also pretty neat to see. There's a number of webcams up there. They also have a YouTube channel, the Live Summit webcam, which is cool to check out. But they have, you know, some still shots out here, and just pretty neat to see. Definitely looks like it's going down here, though. All right, so episode 26 will be ending here soon, and then we'll check back on episode 27 once it begins its inflation again. All right, yeah, there's a seafloor activity. That came off of the sunspot here. I was watching down across the southeastern quadrant of the sun, 4117. An active area with quite a few complexity cores in there, magnetically speaking. So watch that. It does have some potential there for some strong M flare activity. This regional sunspot starting to decay quite a bit. That's been the source of 2 X flares and a number of M flares. That starting to drift further out there across the western limb as well. That's going to be 4114. So once that's gone, well, I guess we'll have to watch this sunspot group over here. Overall flare threat right now, they dropped it a little bit here to 15% chance for an X flare, M flare at 65% chance. Proton events, they're around 10% or so. And there's our most recent M flare coming off of that sunspot on the southeastern quadrant of the sun. It'll be facing us here for a number of days still. But nothing big. There's the X flare from yesterday. I don't think that was very eruptive, a very impulsive X flare, so no CME activity was shot off at Earth. Therefore, nothing big happening there on the aurora forecast for now. Take a glance here at the next close approach asteroids here from the NASA site. Oh, there we go. Can be one of those days. Normally I can find it without any issues, but sometimes it just skips right over me, or I skip right over it. Today, let's see here. Well, this is actually tomorrow. 140-foot, newly discovered airplane-sized asteroid. That's 1 million miles away, though. But they're always discovering all these new ones, and they're actually somewhat fairly large as well. Nothing like this one. This one here is about the size of Apophis, maybe a little bit smaller. Apophis, of course, going to be this asteroid I was looking at. Supposed to come in awfully close to the planet here in 2029. The particle size of this here is a little bit larger, obviously a lot larger than the size of Apophis. But Apophis is about 1,500-foot asteroid, and it's supposed to come within about 12,000 miles of the planet. I've been looking at this thing and studying it, and even if a smaller particle size was there, it, to me anyway, even with a smaller particle size, it would directly intercept the Earth's orbit here with what looks like a direct impact. But this is just a computer simulation here. But even with a smaller particle size, that's just crazy. I'm gonna have to keep looking back on that. They say there's no chance of any impact, that we're safe. Interesting. So that's something we'll be covering more in detail with a lot more information, but I wanted to bring that up here. This asteroid that we're seeing coming in here in a couple days is about the same size as Apophis, a little bit smaller though. 1,200-foot stadium-size asteroid. That's been tracked since about 2003. That's 3 million miles away. That's pretty far. But yeah. All right. What else we got here? Severe weather for a Friday. Looks like the northern plains here getting hit with some more severe weather out there. Got a 10% added hatched area there across North Dakota, and the portions of the, it looks like, Minnesota area as well. That's for some tornado activity. Main area of concern right in that center portion, but you can get some tornado activity there in the 5 and 2% zone that extends further as well. Big time wind threats and some big time hail threats out there in this area. So just be on guard for the severe weather potential today. That severe weather shifts further to the east here, due east it looks like, around the Great Lakes tomorrow. But still some severe weather lingering out there across the northern plains for the Saturday. We have some cooler weather, but some drier weather coming up here across California today and this weekend. Got a low pressure. This is actually a decent low pressure system for this time of year. Unfortunately, not a lot of moisture associated with this, but we're going to be down into the low 80s, and that's well below normal for us for this time of year. But you know what? I'll take low 80s over 100 degrees any day. So that's going to bring in some strong north winds out here as well. I'm already underneath a fire weather watch out here. Not quite a red flag warning yet, but I'm sure it will jump into that due to the wind picking up and also the dew point and humidity dropping like a rock out here. We got a lot of very dry fuel And as far as the vegetation goes, and it's going to increase the fire danger out here across California. Let's go over here to the fire danger map. Fuel moisture, quite dry. Oregon's going to get some rain this weekend from that low pressure system, so I think they're okay up there. Although they've had some fires start, not. It's much more moist up there across Oregon than here in northern and southern California. But the fire spread concern is increasing. For Saturday, look at that. Out here where I'm at in Northern California in the Sacramento Valley, got big time fire spread. In fact, they're shutting off the power. PG&E here is shutting off the power to many communities around Glenn County, I believe Tehama County. I don't know up around Paradise or not, but yeah, they're shutting off the power this afternoon. Even if they shut my power off, my power system here for my computer system and my internet is off the grid. So, which I like. I'm running some solar generators here, and during the day it runs strictly off of solar, my computer and everything. At night it'll run off the battery, and if it gets depleted a little bit, obviously I have many solar panels to charge up the battery. So it's kind of neat. If it does go down, then obviously the live stream should stay up here. But we got some big time fire concerns here for Saturday. Sunday starting to get a little bit better. But yeah, today, tomorrow, ooh, goodness. A lot of drier conditions out here coming in for a big time fire spread. There's our fire weather watch right now through the Sacramento Valley. From Redding all the way down to almost probably Modesto, close to Merced there. So, not good. Anywho, no rain accumulation for us anytime soon. For us to get rain in June, July, August, even September would be extremely rare. It's just it doesn't happen out here. Rain up in Oregon this weekend in Washington, beautiful along the coastline, I'm sure. But yeah, look at that. Nothing coming up here well into June. The rest of the country, pretty decent though. Kind of skipping over Oklahoma and Texas, but these folks need a break, I think. They've had a lot of rain out here recently. They could probably use a little bit of sunshine there and some drying up. Anyway, all right, folks, I'm out of here. Seismograph stations there offline, but it's been doing that off and on here. It will come back on after I think about 20 or 30 seconds or so. So I've tried resetting it, it really doesn't do anything, so it might have an issue on their end. Anyway, folks, have yourself a wonderful day. Keep an eye on some things out here. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world that are pretty much out of our control. Just got to be prepared for the worst, hope for the best. And, yeah, we'll see you guys out here a little bit later on for the Friday night update, folks. Take care and enjoy your Friday. Stay safe out there.